Hey, welcome to the Summit Host Hangout podcast where you'll learn how to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit. No influencer status necessary. I'm your host, Krista from Summit in a Box, and over the past few months, putting a bigger focus on people over profits has become more and more important to me in the work I do with summits. And that's why I'm so excited to be bringing in a special guest today to talk about designing the people experience of your virtual summit. And to give you some background information on our guest, she's a systems strategist who helps business owners generate leads, increase productivity, and streamline client experience. She is incredible at taking big picture ideas and creating systems to execution. And we all know how important and helpful that is when it comes to hosting a virtual summit. She even has an online weekly meetup group called the Systems Lab where she helps create business systems. So without further ado, let's dive in and talk with Ashley Shuler. Welcome, Ashley. I'm so excited to have you here.
Oh, thank you so much, Chris. I'm excited to be here.
This is going to be so good. I can't wait to nerd out about the experience side of summits because I think that's something that's so often overlooked and not talked about. It's easy to talk about the strategy, but we don't talk about the people. Before we dive into that, though, tell us a little bit about you, your business, what got you into summits, all that good stuff.
Oh, absolutely. So the premise of my business is project management. I use different strategies and best practices, and I just like to sneak them in, right, and dress them up so that people don't feel like bored, like, oh, you're talking about project management, Ashley, why? And so as we embarked upon the pandemic, I knew that there were going to be many people, solopreneurs, business owners that we're really going to be intimidated. And that's okay to have a healthy fear of just hosting something online, putting on a virtual conference, putting on a virtual summit. And I said, well, let me just, gather my spidey senses and my books and my thoughts and whatnot and my strategy. And I said, and let's just create a VIP day where I can help put the structure together for people to be able to follow a system that's repeatable so that they can put on their virtual summit. And so that's how, I essentially fell into the kind of the structure and the planning piece. But for me, I'm a lifelong online learner. So I take classes, I do all sorts of different types of online conference stuff, even prior to COVID. So I definitely found this niche and I wanted to be able to add value.
Yeah. And as someone who has been, learning online for an extended period, you're probably so in tune with what the people experience looks like.
Yes.
Because you've seen it go in all different directions.
Yes, I have. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the thing is that like my direction and my focus is really from someone who sits in the seat. So when I sit in the seat, I see a lot of different things that are happening. And I said to myself, okay, I said, I'm writing down these tips, I'm writing down these lessons. And, one of the big things is that people believe that you can't create like an online experience. Like you can't create it like an in-person experience. And at a certain degree, they're right. Like you can't necessarily recreate that same in-person experience, but it does not mean that you can't create impact. You can't add value. You can't you can't make revenue. You can't generate leads. You can't create community, and you can do all of that, but you have to have the right foundational pieces to that.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Okay. I want to dive into this people experience thing specifically to virtual summits. So can you talk us through why it's so important? Like, is this something you've seen a lot of summit hosts miss?
I have seen, definitely have seen it hits in certain points and then it hits on other points. But again, there's no continuity, there's no consistency, and there's no particular framework to actually think about, how do we create a people experience, right? How do we truly actually make this summit or conference experience just flow? You know what I'm saying? That has a certain energy to it. And so, I think that goes into the certain, frame of mind to think, okay, I'm having an online event and we focus so much on the information, and the information is great. But again, we also have to think about how people are learning the information, how people are actually receiving it, how people are coming into your actual pipeline, and then what sort of activities are you doing in between that to keep people engaged.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love that so much. If you don't think about any of that stuff, it's literally just you sending emails that aren't making sense to your audience to go watch these presentations that they don't remember why they should watch, right?
Right. Exactly.
Yeah. So, okay, let's talk about the different pieces of creating a people experience in a virtual summit. You want to just walk us through a couple that you think are the most important?
I do. Absolutely. I'll walk you through it. So one of the things that is really important that I think about is, I ask the question to my clients, okay, what are you going to do with your attendees before, during, and after your virtual summit? This is just what I ask, a simple question. I don't want to make it entirely complicated, but again, I kind of get that look kind of like, huh? What do you mean? What do I do? And so I break it down and I say, okay, so what do you do before people arrive? Before people are clicking a button, before people are going to sign, what are some of these things that we're going to be doing, right? What are some of these activities? And so we talk about a lot about the visioning. We talk about, what are the three outcomes that you want for people to come into your summit? What do you want them to experience? We talk a lot about the marketing and the branding piece of it. And so what's the messaging behind that? What's the look? What's the feel of it, right? Because that we are in an online environment, we do have to put special care to how we're going to talk to people, just like if we were just in the room together, even though we're online. What is the energy that you're going to be putting into it? So we spend a lot of time diving into that visioning piece of it. And I know some folks are like, oh man, I want to kind of get into like the let's just get it done and plan and go, right? But again, these are some of these foundational pieces, right? So you want to make sure that you have not only the email marketing piece of it, but again, what are some of the messaging that's in that? What are some of the sequences? Again, it also with your people experience, let's talk about, your speakers. How do they align with your vision? And then most importantly too, again, when you want your people to come, all right, what's the niche? What's the actual, problem that we're looking to solve, right? A lot of times we like to, and I know that I've done it in my business where we're casting a wide net to folks, right? And cast a wide net, you know what I'm saying? And we have to really think about what this impact is going to be. And so then I walk people through too, during the summit. So, what all the things that go on. We have 15 browsers. If you're like me, be honest, they're all up. We're clicking, but we're listening. So, but the thing is, how are we keeping people engaged? Are we going to do a giveaway? Are we going to do raffles? Again, a big emphasis on creating community. Are you housing your people in one space? So is that Facebook? Is that Mighty Networks? Are we going to be housing people so that we can have an opportunity to connect? And so that's really one of the stats I heard when I was reading just this morning was like 80% of people come to virtual events for educational purposes. But the second reason is for the networking. It's for the networking and the connection, right? So we want to make sure that happens. And then afterwards, again, this is a system, right? These virtual summit and conferences, these are a system. So again, do we just let people kind of like in the grocery store? We just go in and come out and just go in, And so what is it? We go back to the purpose, which goes right back to the visioning piece of it. What happens afterwards, right? And so we really map those things out so that, and it takes a minute. But again, this is a part of the process, right? Because you want to make sure that you're getting that piece right.
Oh my goodness. I love all of that so much. Okay. I'm trying to think of like where to start with breaking some of that down because that was so much good stuff. Could you give us an example? You said like before the summit, you like to help people think about what are 3 key outcomes you want attendees to walk away with. Could you give us an example of like what one of those outcomes might be and how you would use that to kind of design the experience or, how you would plug that into different areas?
I do. Absolutely. So transformation is big. And we want to really think about when we're talking about transformation, we're really talking about if you are solving a particular problem, what's that transformation that's going to take place? Because people are coming because they're looking to find a missing key, some sort of missing piece of information. And so they're attending, they're buying the ticket, the all access pass, and they're looking for that 1 or 2 things that are like, I didn't know that. I need to plug that into my business so that they can actually go off and do great things after your summit. So let's look at what are these pain points and what is the transformation that will occur afterwards, right? That's a big piece of the messaging.
Yes. Oh my gosh. It's so important. And I don't know. I can think of examples off the top of my head where people didn't think that far into it. I look at the summit and have to like start analyzing it. And like, if you're not solving a problem, if you're not helping people overcome those pain points, like what's the point? You have to do more than host this cool summit. It has to actually help your people in some way. So I love that you brought that up. Okay, so something else you said about you like your people to think about during the summit is like how you're keeping people engaged. Could you give us some examples of things like that that you think have kind of elevated experiences from what you've seen?
Yeah, there's a few that I've seen that people have done really, really well, and that is bringing in the guest speakers into the Facebook groups, having a live Q&A, or they may have a separate on a different type of platform. They've had a panel discussion, sort of like an after party. I'm sort of waiting to spring that on somebody to be like, have you ever thought about having the summit after party? Like what happens afterwards, okay? And being able to help people be able to actually connect all the dots. But definitely, people have done some fun things like put some DJs in the mix. People have done some cool things like some paint and sips. I've seen, so there's been some really interesting interactive elements, and we have to think out of the box. So I love to be able for people to think what's innovative, what's something that, you saw or you would have liked to have seen in for your own summit. So absolutely.
Oh, that's so cool. I saw someone a few weeks ago that did like a yoga meditation break, like, I don't know, at like 10 a.m. or something. And there's someone was like, that is so smart. I've never done anything like the paint and sip, like you said, DJ. Like I've never gone that far outside the box. And I love it so much. That stands out and that gets people excited. And when they show up
Yeah,
once for something like that, they're more likely to show up again the next day for the things,
absolutely.
that you want them to really show up for.
Oh,
That's
yes.
so cool. I love that. Okay, another question that I had come up while you were talking about like ways to elevate the people experience during the summit was the community. And you pointed out like where and how are you building community? And I've seen people asking like, do I have to have a Facebook group? Do I have to have a community? And my answer is always, yeah, but I would love to hear your thoughts, hear someone else's thoughts beside my own on that.
Well, here's what I would say. I would say that, in order to magnify the experience, because again, people are coming not only for the information, but people are also knowing, is there someone like me that's out there? Is there someone that I actually could potentially be, a business bestie? Is there someone that I could actually have my own podcast? People are looking to make connections. And now more than ever, people are definitely looking to, make those next tangible steps in their business. So yes, I would say absolutely have a group. Now, definitely now this is an interesting aspect. When do you want to do it? I think that's an interesting point. Some people do it during, like during the event, they have something, or if you want to pull people afterwards, that's also something. But definitely having something set up, but also you will have to have time to carve out purpose of the group, planning out some content, that type of thing. Absolutely.
Yeah, I feel like my Facebook groups that I use as part of my summits are like what keep people really showing up because they're like, oh, these hundreds of other people are struggling with the same thing as me and they're showing up
Oh,
here
absolutely.
and putting in the work and I'm going to too. And I just feel like I don't know. I feel like they're such game changers with summits. Otherwise, you're sending emails, talking at people. They can't have conversations back, you know?
Yes, yes,
Oh,
absolutely.
I love all of that. Do you have anything else you want to add around the people experience? Otherwise, we can dive into like one step you want people to take to get started with it.
I think one thing I would say is that, we just have to remember that people are people at the end of the day, right? That we're all just human and we all are just really looking to make that connection, right? To improve whatever part of our life that we're looking for when it comes to putting on these events. So just remember that first before, we're thinking about like, like, I don't know if like this is like the good idea, be willing to be a risk taker because that's how you learn and that's how you innovate as well. And also have fun. You want to make this experience to be enjoyable, to be fun. So definitely keep those things in mind.
I love that. All right. So, what is one step that our listeners can take to start putting their people experience into action?
Yes, I can give some homework. Let's go. So one thing I would want to do, and I have this exercise I have my clients do, is I want them to grab a hat of some sort, a baseball cap, whatever sort of winter cap. And I want you to actually visualize yourself as the attendee of your own conference. And then I want you to grab a pen or paper or Google Doc and actually write down, okay, what is the three outcomes that, you're expecting from this event? And really write it out and write also out like, like what you would put on an Instagram story or what you would put in a post. You know what I'm saying? What's going to kind of get people motivated enough to actually say, you know what, I want to tell everybody about what's going on or what I'm learning, and being able to put those pieces together. So that's what I would do.
I love that so much. Thank you. Where can everyone go to learn more about you and what you offer? And I know you have an awesome checklist that they can snag as well.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. So please visit me at Instagram at Ashley Shuler _. And I'd love to chat with you all about your Q4 and also Q1 2021 plans about hosting your own virtual summit. And then I will also be sending you a freebie. It's a checklist for designing the people experience of your next virtual summit.
Oh, I love it. We will link to her Instagram and the checklist in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here, Ashley. This was awesome.
Thank you so much, Krista.
Thank you so much for tuning in. For show notes and resources we mentioned, head to summitHostHangout.com/097. Now go out and take action to plan, strategize, and launch your profitable online summit.